Hello everyone and welcome back to Speaking Spurs and me, Kieran, talking all things Tottenham. And the word of today is meh. Now I say that because, we played pretty well. Got a draw that ultimately feels like a loss. Yes, Sean Dyche is doing well with his Everton side. They are hard to break down at home. But what does this mean in terms of Premier League table? Well, we dropped out of the top four after our draw because Aston Villa went on to win their game. So the table looks as this: Liverpool sitting top with 51 points, Arsenal second on 49, Man City third on 46 with Aston Villa on 46 points as well in fourth, and us sitting in fifth with 44 points, and then just below us Manchester United on 38 points, but they've played the same amount of games. So in terms of games played, we've all played 23 apart from Man City, who have played 21. So if they win their two games, they could actually go top. So yeah, title race is very much still open. That leaves us a little adrift at the moment, so we are 7 points off of leaders Liverpool. Now, the weekend scores that resulted in what happened to us, so obviously we know we drew 2-2. It goes back to Thursday night with West Ham's 1-1 draw with Bournemouth. Manchester United beat Wolves 4-3. Then the weekend games, we drew 2-2 with Brighton beating Palace 4-1, Burnley, Fulham 2-2, Newcastle, Luton in an 8-goal thriller, which was 4-4, and Aston Villa destroyed Sheffield United 5-0, and that was actually an away game for Aston Villa. Then obviously Sunday we get into the Bournemouth Nottingham Forest 1-1, Chelsea beaten 4-2 by Wolves, Man United beat West Ham 3-0, and Arsenal beat Liverpool 3-1. So Liverpool sit top despite the fact that they lost that game. But now let's get into ours, because that's what's actually important. So we had to settle for a point. 2-2 draw with Everton in the Premier League. We were the lunchtime kick-off. Postecoglou actually made 2 changes for this game after a quick turnaround from our midweek win over Brentford. So we travelled up to Goodison Park less than 72 hours after that game. Pierre-Emile Højbjerg came into the lineup after he played well in the second half against Brentford, and then he replaced Oliver Skipp. And the other change in that game was Brennan Johnson managed to get himself a start after his good showing in the second half against Brentford as well. So that means Kulusevski was given a rest on the bench. Pat Matassar was back on the bench as well after the return from the African Cup of Nations following Senegal's last 16 defeat to the Ivory Coast. So we actually took the lead just 3 minutes into the game. Madness. Richarlison making it 8 goals in 8 Premier League games at that point in the game as he swept home a Destiny Udogie low cross. And the finish it was a pretty good finish because the ball wasn't on the floor at the time. It was kind of like a bit of a really, really low curved volley, really nicely taken. The Everton fans actually applauded the Brazilian after he apologised to them a couple of times. Everton levelled then after the half-hour mark. Vicario could only palm it into the corner. Jack Harrison backing into him. Now, this was a feature of the game. He was obviously targeted. We'll talk about that in a bit. Backing into him across the face of goal, and it was then headed back across for Dominic Calvert-Lewin to head against Harrison's leg and in. It's a bit of a theme, isn't it? Because in the last game, Mopé struck the ball and then it went down onto his quad and went in, so a miss hit, and this one then was headed on to someone and went in. We went back into the lead though with a lovely curling effort from Richarlison outside the box. That was after a little prodded ball from James Maddison, a little bit of quick thinking. We actually created better chances in the second half, but Everton managed to find a really, really late leveller, and it's annoying because we couldn't hold out. And it's very strange actually, because if you think about Tottenham under Conte, we were very much the team that would score late goals. Even at the beginning of this season under Ange Postecoglou, we were scoring late goals. But the difference being, we were scoring early goals this season, which we've continued to do. We're just not able to score the late goals, and ultimately we're allowing in late goals. We're actually, I think, we're the worst team in the Premier League at the moment for conceding goals after the 90th minute. So yeah, the way they scored this, Christian Romero actually headed The free kick on, flicked it on backwards for Jared Branthwaite, who to nod in at the back post. Really, really annoying, because we're not actually bad from set pieces. You might say in this game it might have looked that way, but actually they threw the ball into the box over 30 times, so eventually it's going to happen, and they're just sticking players on the keeper. So talking of the players, let's get into that. So Vicario in goal, really unfortunate for the first half equaliser, because, as I said, Harrison was pushing back into him without even looking to get the ball. Some might say it'd be soft to give it as a free kick. Others, who knows? It's just a bit of a weird one at the moment, because goalkeepers once upon a time would have been collecting balls for fun, and now they seem to be a bit more timid. They're much more associated with being able to play the ball out. They are definitely ball players these days, and maybe that's caused for a bit of a softening of the way they act in goal. A lot of them, if they are coming out, rarely catch it. They tend to punch it instead. But nonetheless, the rules need to be cleared up a bit better, or whether there's going to be protection for goalkeepers or not. But yeah, it actually looked to be a little bit more of a foul than the one that wasn't given for City's winner against us. He made a great reaction save with his legs on the goal line just before half time. That was from a Godfrey header, I think, and then held a Chamiti effort on 87 minutes. Couldn't really do much about Branthwaite's late header though. Pedro Porro, he's gone a bit quieter recently, isn't he, the last couple of games. He had plenty to do defensively once again, as he did in the last game against Brentford. Forced Pickford into a flying save at the other end. So yeah, he's just kind of gone off it a little bit after all that hype that occurred in the games previous. Christian Romero in at centre-back. His passing wasn't particularly great, really, in the first half. Played a few loose passes. Better in the second half, though. Late in the game, it was actually his looping header, as I said earlier, from that free kick onto Branthwaite for the chance to equalise. Mickey van der Ven, however, had a very good game. His pace definitely came in handy in this game. Mopped up a lot of tackles, some really strong tackles flying in as well, which I like, but they were very, very clean at the same time. He was very handy when there was balls over the top of our back line. And, him and Richarlison are kind of the two that were neck and neck for man of the match. Richarlison obviously scored his 2 goals, which, on a normal day would make him man of the match. But I think Van der Ven's performance slightly puts him above him, because without Van der Ven, might have conceded a couple more goals. Right, out on the left, Destiny Udogie. And this is where Udogie annoys me, because sometimes he's absolute class and other times he'll have a bit of a mixed game. But we know that's down to age. This is a game where he played particularly well. Got an early assist as he picked up Richarlison in the box to score after 3 minutes. He was involved in the second goal as well with a driving run. Worked really hard down his flank. Some good defending. And seems to be doing well with Werner in front of him. And it was nice to see him bounce back after a very mixed performance in the last game. Into the midfield, and this is where it gets a bit annoying for us, because it's the place where we've got the least cohesion at the moment, which is a shame, because Postecoglou's system heavily depends on the midfielders to kind of be in sync. And it's because it's been chopped and changed because of injuries or people away. Bizuma obviously started most of the season, then he had his suspensions. We've obviously had injuries to James Maddison, Lo Celso, Bentancur. Skippy's been in and out of the side. Højbjerg's had to start and come in late in games. So it's been very, very disrupted, and this was evident in this game, because Bentancur once again was quiet. We know he's going to get back there at some point. It's just a matter of when. So yeah, there's not really much to talk about on him. Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, however, the utility man that's been used mostly as a sub in this season, but when he's come in, he's done fairly well. It was a mixed first half for him. As always, loads and loads of effort, but as quite regularly, lots of loose passes. And look, this is going to happen. He's there to defensively mop up things, but he's also playing in a system where he's got to be a ball player. Now, the problem is, if you're a ball player further up the field, those loose passes probably don't get as much criticism, but because he's playing a bit further back, you play loose passes, you're giving the opposition extra yards, really, so they're closer to your goal, which is why I think he gets more criticism. But, worked away as the defensive player in the trio until he was replaced late on. James Maddison, you can see that he's still working his way back as well. He fired a early deflective. He had an early deflective effort from the edge of the Everton box. Got his assist, prodding the ball to Richarlison's path for the second goal. Had a powerful effort in the second half that Pickford had to push away. But yeah, still looking for a bit of sharpness, but we know it will come. But he did get an assist, so that's what he's there for. On to the front three. Brennan Johnson. Seems to be quite quiet when he starts. He's very effective off the bench, but yeah, quiet first half. He did race away to set up a good chance for Werner 10 minutes into the second half. That was cut out at the last moment by Godfrey, sliding interception, and then he came off himself just after the hour mark. Timo Werner, a bit disappointing. He caused Everton some problems with his runs down the left. Had an effort saved before being flagged offside. Could have had bit more conviction in getting onto a Johnson cross that was instead, as I said, intercepted by Godfrey. But yeah, he's still working back to full fitness. So he said in his interview after the last game he's at about 80%. So I've no doubt that he's going to get there at some point. I like some of the others. You know, we're still doing relatively well considering players are coming back from injury or we've had bit part players. So we can't complain too much. Then on to the man in the middle, the guy that cannot stop scoring, Richarlison. It seems to be that surgery that he had has just cured a lot of things for him. He's been a great player since. One of them that even if he's having a fairly quiet game, he looks like he's going to score at some point. So he actually made it 8 goals in 8 games with his first goal. And then the Everton fans applauded him after he apologised a couple of times. His second goal was even better though. You know, the first goal was nice because it was a well-taken low volley, but the second one, a curling effort from outside the box. I think it was first time as well. The ball was prodded across. He let it run across him and just beautifully curled. So that actually makes it 9 goals in 8 games from Richarlison. And this is a guy that in his first season with us, yes, he scored a couple of goals outside of the Premier League, but really struggled for goals in the Premier League. But that's not the case anymore. He actually had a chance for a hat-trick 69 minutes in, but Pickford, it was one of the few good saves that Pickford had to make in the game. Hold-up play was actually really good in the game, really impressed. Although he was the one that stopped tracking Branthwaite at the back post for the late leveller. So I think had he managed to have stopped Branthwaite from scoring, that might have put him neck on neck and we'd have had a joint man of the match in him and Mickey van der Ven. So moving on to the substitutes. Pat Matasar back into the side after his African Cup of Nations, brought some energy to the midfield in the final half an hour, but didn't really do too much of note. Kulusevski came on, set up Richarlison for a chance not too long after coming on, but he was the one that gave away that late free kick for their second half equaliser. Oliver Skipp came on late in the game as well, just to add a bit of energy, as he always does. Brian Hill came on as well. He replaced Werner for the late stages of the game. And then Radu Dragoshin, the Romanian, came in and got a bit of extra game time as well. Now, what I like about Postecoglou is that when he brings in new signings, even though Dragoshin isn't at the moment considered to be one of the first two, that's obviously Romero and Van der Ven. I like the fact that he's still trying to find him some minutes just so he gets a bit of time to help bed himself in rather than just leaving him on the bench. And also, it's interesting, Brian Hill. So I said before the transfer window closed that Jamie Donnelly actually came on instead of Brian Hill in one of those games. So we thought maybe that was because he was trying to get him out the door on a loan. But it's nice to see that now Brian Hill's decided to stay. Postecoglou's more than happy to give him some minutes and get him involved, which just goes to show what kind of manager he is. He's decided to stay, so he's like, do you know what? I'm going to use you. If you're going to be around the squad, why not? And I like that. So yeah, in terms of the game itself, it was just frustrating because all we had to do was hold on a little bit more. And I understand that Postecoglou plays football the way he does. I just feel that maybe in a game where we haven't quite taken our chances, because he mentioned it after the game that, you know, we just got to take these chances to kill off the game. But the fact is, Jordan Pickford's a very good keeper and he was forced into a few saves. Who knows? A different keeper in the Premier League might have conceded at least one of them. So, you know, you have to put that into the fray as well. But yeah, it's one of them where I think if you see the way the game's going and we're not taking our chances clinically enough later in the game, sometimes I think maybe, just maybe, tweak it a little bit, give us a little bit of extra defensive cover, go slightly less attacking, because Everton's a place where under Sean Dyche they're going to keep fighting till the end. And as I'd said earlier in the season, without their points deduction, they'd be quite a bit further up the table, and they would definitely be a safe team. Sean Dyche is no mug. He's a very good manager. He did an amazing job at Burnley for all those years. He's not going to let Everton go down without a massive fight. And that points deduction, I think, just gave him more motivation to make sure they stay up. So, they're a decent side. They're hard to beat, especially at Everton. And I actually saw Ali Gold was talking about the fact that the Everton Stadium, Goodison Park, reminds him of like a blue version of White Hart Lane. I've actually never been to Goodison Park, so I can't comment on it. So anyone that has travelled to Goodison Park and seen a game, let me know in the comments below what you think. Do you think it's reminiscent of White Hart Lane? Is it the northern equivalent? It'd just be interesting to know, because White Hart Lane, I think, was a very unique stadium where you were just right on top of the players all the time. There was like barely any distance. You could almost touch them from where you were. It was fantastic, and they tried to replicate that at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium to keep us close. But there was just something about White Hart Lane that was magical, that I'll always love. I quite like the smallness of it. So yeah, let me know below. But yeah, in terms of that, sometimes I just wish he'd go a little bit more defensive, or change the way the players are pressing, maybe hold on to the ball a little bit more in the latter stages of the game, rather than keep trying to quickly work our way up the pitch to score a goal. I don't know. But, it's difficult, because I suppose it's his system, and we know there's going to be times where defensively we're going to get caught out. But, it's just a thought. But all in all, I think we're doing relatively well. We're still within the hunt. I do still think, looking at that table, so Man City always do better in the second half, so they're going to creep up. I think Aston Villa, at some point, there's going to be mistakes in them, and there's going to be opportunities for us to continue. But it does look like at the moment that, from 5th or up to 1st, are kind of starting to pull away now. Because as I said, we're on 44 points, Manchester United on 38. I can't see them covering that ground. So if we have a little bit look further down, so you've got West Ham on 36 points, but again, they've played 23 games as well, and then you've got Brighton on 35. Newcastle all the way down in 9th on 33 points. Now I think that's probably the shock of the season, but that's obviously, they've had big injury problems like we have, and I think the European football has definitely hindered them at the same time this season. So, it's tight. But ultimately, I think once everybody is back and it clicks again, I think we'll start pushing our way back up that table again. I just don't think Aston Villa have got it in them. They're proving us all wrong at the moment, but I think we're all in our heads, they're going to slip up at some point. We'll see. But that's it for today. Thanks for sticking around. I have been Kieran from Speaking Spurs. Do not forget to like the video, subscribe if you haven't done so already, and please comment below, because I love to keep the conversation going. But thanks for sticking around. I hope you enjoyed it, and until next time, come on you Spurs.